News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Welcome to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning.
I'm Allan Gilbreth with darkoakmedia.com.
And I'm Maximilian. And Joe, are you ready for this?
Lay it on me.
Happy World Migratory Bird Day.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. World, okay, explain. I think I understand, but that seems like that's a mouthful.
I guess it's 'tis the season.
World I'm just thinking of the acronym here. Does it flow? World Migratory Bird Day.
Womb. Oh, it's womb.
There you go.
So what are we talking about? You know, if are parrots migratory birds,
No.
Allan? Because when I lived in San Diego, Allan, I saw a flock of parrots.
Yes.
And they were tearing up the neighborhood. Then
Yes.
they fly off.
And then they moved to the next neighborhood and destroyed it. Then they came back.
Right. And
No,
they
they're
made
not
a racket.
migratory. Yeah, they're
Okay.
not migratory.
Hey, that's pretty good, Max. Hey.
Migratory is like the swallows returning to Capistrano,
Okay.
or the swans flying back to the Netherlands.
Or, I mean, of course, we've got the geese flying south for the winter, right?
Right. Or
ducks.
in this case, coming back for, Memphis in May.
Okay, yeah. Hey, that's pretty good, Max. Migratory bird, International Migratory Bird Day. Right?
World Migratory Bird Day.
I mean, yeah, they know no borders. They don't care
They
about.
kind of fly where they
They're
want to
going to
go.
go where they
right?
want to go. So, all right. Well, hey, if you're out there and you're celebrating World Migratory Bird Day, let us know. You can chime in over at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline, 901-683-0989. And, of course, Allan, we are going to encourage everybody to get to jump over on Facebook for many reasons. First of all, if they go to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page, they can see the posts I made a post of our must-have item of the week, which is interestingly going to spill over into a bigger discussion. It's going to expand teaser there into a bigger discussion. And then, Allan, I made a post. I feel like I have to add a caveat. Let's just say, Allan, I yield to no one in my love for America. You know how patriotic I am and everything. But in honor of Mother's Day, we are going to celebrate, for our great moments in building history, the mother of all mother statues, the Motherland Calls statue in Volgograd.
So
It's
the
big.
acronym for this one is MOMS.
Moms. Yeah.
Subtract the A for all, and you get MOMS.
This statue looks like something that came out of a Lord of the Rings movie. It is it is an impressive structure, which is what we're celebrating
it's huge.
today.
It's huge.
Pretty interesting. Allan, okay, we've got Allan's Week in Review, which says basically French drains require maintenance.
Let's just say I've been playing in the dirt.
Yeah.
So you go from Russia to France.
Okay, yeah. So whatever that means, Max, I don't know. But we got our must-have item of the week. Let's see. We've got I might have to report in, Allan. I have bad news. I broke my reciprocating saw.
Oh, my gosh, you could die.
I didn't think that was possible based on what you told me. Although when you try to remove a tree stump with a
That sounds like the setup for a very bad joke.
Yeah.
I think that's going beyond the prescribed use of said reciprocating saw.
Yeah, it might be.
I've done it. You
Okay.
know,
But
I
it's
haven't
supposed to
broken one yet.
But it's
though.
supposed to sawzall.
That's
Yeah.
what
I guess
that's
not.
what the label said. So I saw it all and I paid the price. So I think I might report in on that. Allan, in a minute we are going to get to. Well, no, I'm not going to tease it because we're going to get to it in a minute.
Okay.
I wanted to say something though. This is sort of a new fun thing we're going to do here at Tool Talk Radio. So. Apparently, this all started because our buddy Brandon Olmsted from Geek Tank Radio was walking into the gas station, and he heard Tool Talk Radio playing on a Saturday morning. And he said, "Oh, that's kind of nifty." And I happened to mention it to our general manager Morgan Bohannon, and he said that's cool. And I feel like we should send some love out to businesses that play Tool Talk Radio on
absolutely.
Saturdays. So, Allan, you've got these wonderful Tool Talk Radio swag packs,
I do.
right? And so, I think we need to drop by there and give them a swag pack, and maybe
I think we can do that.
that could be a regular thing. So, if you're a place of business and you enjoy playing Tool Talk Radio on Saturdays, get in touch with us and let us know, and we will be sending a Tool Talk Radio swag pack your way. So this location happened to be the Amico station at Poplar and Yates. So big
wow,
shout out
man.
to the folks
Way to
over
go,
there,
guys.
and thanks for listening and spread the word. You know, it's pretty nifty. So
I'm all for it.
All right, so Allan, we're going to kick this off. That we're reconfiguring the show today as is our wont. Usually, this is something we would do at the end of the show, but after our exhaustive show prep last night, you and I agreed this is something that maybe the listeners are going to want to get in on, and so it's time to exchange some tool tales.
And now, Tool Tales with Tool Talk Radio.
Very good, Max. So. Let's see. I don't know who that mysterious voice was, but
Really can't.
I think. Well, I don't know if this qualifies as tool tales, but it started because I just happened to mention to Allan that I have a great spackle hack, which is also the new name for my band, spackle hack. And I said, I think it's worth mentioning on the air. And sure enough, as it usually happens, we start with one thing and it leads to all of these other things. And so I want to just talk about something I've been doing for years, and it never occurred to me to discuss it on the show, but I think a lot of people might find this valuable. So let's suppose you've got some, a good example is like some pencil marks on your wall, or I think this even works with crayon.
Okay.
Well, that can be difficult to remove. If you try to erase it, sometimes that doesn't really work. The lead is just difficult to get off. Well, here's a little trick you can try, folks. Get yourself a wet cloth. Maybe my favorite material is like a t-shirt material or something, although it'll work with like a towel or something. Get it pretty wet, and then get yourself some joint compound or some spackle and kind of rub it on the cloth like a paste. And if you swirl that over the pencil, you'd be amazed what that does. It more or less takes it off. And then when it comes off, then you just get yourself, wet the rag again, wipe it off, and you're pretty much ready to rock. So I know it works, Allan, but I wasn't sure why it works. And as the chemist, I thought maybe you'd want to. And then we've got several other hacks that we're going to discuss, too. And if you've got hacks that are unusual like that, we want you to get in on the discussion.
Man, give us a
See if you
call.
can make a band name out of that. Although I think Spackle Hack also sounds like a German name.
It sounds like a Norwegian
Herr
death
Spackle
metal
Hack.
band. So, yeah. Okay, Allan, so that one works. I can attest to it. I've done it many times. So why does that work?
Well, the easiest thing is that's about 1,000 rate grit sandpaper.
So that's what it's the texture
the very
of the spackle.
tiny little particles suspended in the spackle. Well, now the difference between spackle and joint compound.
Actually, because I just use them synonymously, but you're saying that's not
they
right.
are very different. When you get into wall compounds, I wouldn't do this with my 20-minute rated. You're going to wind up with
quick dry.
You're going to wind up with a lump on the wall.
That's a
but
good
your
point.
regular good old-fashioned pre-mixed wall mud is a very, 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 very fine particle. And when you start rubbing on it, basically you're emery boarding it off in a very light, very delicate way. Now, in the spackles, you also have the chemical nature of it because it's designed to keep it from setting up in the can. And that chemical nature, now you're getting into kind of solvents.
Because it does dry kind of slow, yeah. Although the film dries pretty fast, but that'll come right off with a cloth. So.
Right, then you just wipe that down.
So you're saying the abrasive nature of it, because it felt to me like the chemical was dissolving it, but no.
Well, again, if there is a solvent in it that keeps the spackle from setting up in the can, it will also help get rid of other related chemicals.
Right. Okay. And I think the key with this, though, Allan, is you got to wet the rag pretty well.
Yeah, you're basically using it as a abrasive.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of like a paste, like you would use a kind of a paste wax or something for clean.
But you can also pull that exact same stump with a tiny little bit of toothpaste.
Oh, well, there's abrasive
also
in that.
Also a micro abrasive.
Okay. Well, Allan, this sparked, that my little hack sparked the whole thing. And you had some, so we're going to kind of go back and forth. I've got a few, you've got a few, and so I'm going to throw it to you now. You've got some pretty interesting ones.
Okay.
So,
all right. Everybody has done this at least once.
Okay.
You've got some kind of erasable board or something like that, and somebody writes on it in permanent marker.
Yeah, we have one here in the studio.
Yeah. I think we're glaring at him.
Yeah.
All right. So now you got the permanent marker on, and I don't care how much spray ammonia you put on it, this stuff ain't coming off.
Right.
All right. Here's your hack. Get your dry erase marker, mark over the permanent ink, And the solvents in the dry erase marker will convert the permanent marker to dry erase.
Now that's interesting.
And then you just wipe it off and get it all nice and clean. And that will work on other surfaces. I warn everybody, though, a dry erase marker is really powerful chemicals.
So what do you mean by that?
Well, it can bleach. So, I'm going to say be very judicious in how you use that hack. It works best on melamine and other erasable surfaces.
Okay, so if it's on cardboard and stuff, you're out of luck. I mean, that's obvious. It's like a sponge.
It's going to eat up the cardboard, right?
Okay. And how long do you do it while it's wet? Like I'm picturing you scrub it on there.
You never get it up. You never find it when it's wet. You walk in the next day and realize somebody scribbled on it.
The dry erase. So I'm saying
you do it really quickly. You just dry erase. Wait a couple of seconds, wipe it off, ready to go.
Okay, isn't that something? So it works as a solvent of itself.
Yes.
Okay, speaking of working as a solvent of yourself, Allan, I always, I'm a woodworker, so stain is my, I have stain in my veins, basically. So one thing that I discovered, and this is true with latex and oil-based, probably more so with oil-based, but a stain has solvent properties to it. So you might have a piece of wood or something with a splotchiness, or maybe the last coat of stain you put on there had some splotchiness.
Right.
Well, it's interesting because now this I'm really hesitant to give this tip. It's not a tip because it can go really badly wrong. But let's just say stain used judiciously it's a solvent to itself, if that makes sense. So,
well, you got to wipe it on and wipe it off pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah, so like I've had situations where I've more so with latex stain where I put some stain on and it's darker than I want it to be.
Right.
So what might seem counterintuitively, if I want to get rid of that, I soak the rag in more stain and wipe it on, and it actually dissolves it.
And wipe it, and then wipe off the excess as fast as possible. Yeah.
Right. It doesn't seem like that would work, but it does. It's a very interesting.
Well, because it carries its own solvent in it to keep it from setting up in the can. Mm-hmm. That's why it works.
While we're talking about that, I've given this tip out before, but this is true. So this has to do with stain. This is I'm going to call this the wet rag stain accelerant hack. Okay. I've talked about this before. I'll be using a stain and it's just not penetrate. It's not like maybe a darker stain, and it's just not getting as dark as I want it to do.
Okay.
Well, I put a coat of stain on, and what I do is I let it dry. Then I take a wet rag, wipe it right across that surface, let it sit for 15 seconds, and then wipe it off. And then I put the stain on, and what happens is I've just raised all those fibers. I've opened it up, and suddenly you put the stain on, and now it gets really dark. So it
gets done in there good.
Yeah, it's like you can bend the stain and the wood to your needs and stuff. So that's just another little stain hack. But Allan, you had one to do with a food source that I thought was fascinating. Do you remember the table? Anyway, I don't know we're not recommending this one. This is like what you do in a pinch, maybe.
Well,
okay.
Keep in mind that you're looking when you're trying to restore wood, and I've done this a few times just to kind of help soften things up a little bit. I was trying to restore, it was actually an antique sycamore buffet.
Okay.
And this stuff was just brittle and hard, and the wood hadn't been done anything in forever.
Yeah.
And an old buddy of mine looked at me and goes, "Man, you got an antique table, you need an antique fix."
Okay.
And I was like, "What?" He's like, "I rub with a little mayonnaise."
Oh, gross. So you put mayonnaise
and I kind of went,
to shine
all
up
right,
the table.
let me think about this for a minute. All right, well, mayonnaise is mostly oil. So if you rubbed it on and you know what? Shockingly, horribly, it put a really nice finish on it. And it's kind of softened things up and conditioned the wood just a little bit.
How do you get rid of the mayo smell?
Well, you just wipe it back down and keep going on with your sanding and working. But it did slap a nice little shine on it real quick too.
Does that attract the pets when you put food on your for staining and everything? Like cats licking it up.
Your dog will love you. Yeah. They'll be working on it for a while.
Well, you've seen this if you have mayonnaise on a knife and it sits in the sink too long, it's basically a transparent coat, right?
Right. It turns back into an oil. Right.
This
So
has-
it's kind of an oil rub, but
This has nothing to do with anything, but I'm reminded of an episode of Parks and Rec where a woman came complaining to Ron Swanson, and they were like, I went to one of your parks and I found a sandwich, and I was wondering why it didn't have mayonnaise.
Max always likes to derail things. Thanks, Max. So, okay. But I have to wonder if in days gone by, if eggs and that might have played a role in as a polyurethane or something. I mean, look at the sheen that it gives you, and look at the.
I mean, I've heard of like Leonardo da Vinci or painters back in the Renaissance using eggs as a part of their paint.
Yeah,
for like
Sure,
mixing
they
eggs
took
in their
everything,
paint.
man. They took berries. They took things to use as
ground dirt.
pigment.
Yeah,
They use
it
urine
just-
for bleach.
Ugh, okay.
Yeah,
Thanks,
yeah,
Max.
well-
So,
Happy breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but mayonnaise. So if you're in a pinch and you don't happen to have any polyurethane, the guests are on their way, and you have this dull spot on
you,
your table.
you got
Whip
30
out the
seconds.
mayonnaise.
You can
Okay.
get a little oil. Yep.
Okay, this one is interesting. This is another thing that you had to do with getting. What is this to get? This is to get scratches or stains out of
stains
glassware.
out of glass.
Now,
Wow.
this one was cool. I thought.
I remember the very first time I saw this trick. It was done with a coffee pot.
Okay.
Had coffee stains in the bottom of it. Just from making too many pots in a row.
Yep.
And one of the guys I was working with said, give me the sugar and some ice cubes.
Yeah.
Huh? Give me some sugar and some ice cubes. Okay, so he dumps the sugar in the dirty pot, throws a handful of ice cubes in it, and just starts swirling it around as fast as he can. And after about a minute, he rinses it all out, and stains are gone.
Now that's brilliant.
It's just
now you
using-
told me what happened. I mean, you explained it to me, but let's explain.
Yeah,
it
it's
to
just the
listeners. What-
sugar makes a really good abrasive.
Sure.
It's a soft micro abrasive. And if it's something you can't get your hands down into,
Mm-hmm.
a little sugar or a little salt and some broken up ice cubes,
Yeah.
and you can give it a good, agitation for a minute or two, and it shockingly will remove a lot of stains and buildup.
I mean,
And it's easy to wash out, so you don't have to worry about leaving a chemical or something
yeah.
in
I
the
mean,
glass container.
if there's a little sugar residue in the, who cares?
you
It's
rinse,
edible.
you rinse it out good, and
Right.
you're not worried about it.
Yeah, instead of using I don't even know what you'd use, like a bleach or something. I mean,
Well,
and so it keeps you from using those harsh chemicals.
It does, and you're not worried about trapping your hand in there or anything like that. And it's one of those things that it shockingly works, and you have in your mind just goes, I don't buy it, but I'm going to do it.
Okay, real quick, because I want to make sure I get this right. Do you add any water at all?
No.
Or is it just strictly? So the swirling ice probably starts to melt
It's
a
just the
little bit.
white, exactly. The agitation will get a little bit of water started, but the ice is there basically to add the weight.
Okay.
They're the sanding block, and you're using sugar or salt to do that. I don't usually use the salt because it has a tendency to stick to the ice,
Right.
but either one will work, sugar or salt.
Well, there you go, folks. How about that? Isn't that interesting? I mean, and I'm sure there's all sorts of, good old fashioned, hacks like this that people know about. So if you've got one.
Oh, don't even get me started on WD-40.
Oh, yeah.
I got about 300 hacks for that.
All right. Well, if you want to weigh in,
Yeah.
you can reach us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline, 901-683-0989. And, you can always send pictures of these hacks as well.
Yes.
And get over to Tool Talk Radio and communicate there. I forgot to mention, Allan, the other reason to get to Tool Talk Radio is because the cameras are on. So if people want to see, if people want to see what it looks like, go over to the News Talk 98.9, the Roar Facebook page, and and you can see what it looks like here in the studio. Max conveniently turned his camera off. He has this, he's kind of like the Wilson of our show.
The only young, good-looking guy in the room, and he turns off his
No,
camera.
Agent 732 is the Wilson of the show.
That's a good point. So, all right. Hey, Allan, let me shift gears real quick because I want to discuss our good buddy Larry Brown with Brown Refrigeration. Boy, you talk about a great business. I'm really proud to be associated with Brown Refrigeration. I don't know if he's proud to be associated with us, but he seems
I would
to
hope
be.
so.
Okay, but man, we had him in recently, and he dropped what I thought was a bomb when he told us that some of these new systems, they're constantly innovating with
Yes.
train systems, and these new, for lack of a better word, they're almost like a hybrid HVAC system. It's a heating system that runs on gas, but also electrical coils,
Right.
which is, depending on the temperature, it makes it much more efficient. And suddenly you can get a pretty hefty federal tax credit for installing one of
Yes.
these. That caught my attention because I need one of those.
Money
anyway.
is money.
Yeah,
Yes, it is.
and so Brown Refrigeration is always dealing with state-of-the-art technology with their train systems. They have a great business culture. That's the thing. You need a rock-solid company, especially when it's your HVAC system. You don't want somebody to come in, tweak your system and then they're gone. You don't want Chuck in his truck working on this.
Right.
Sorry, Chuck. No offense.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you want a company that is reliable. You want to have a relationship with your company because they are going to be out there maybe once or twice a year tuning up your system, looking for problems, kind of helping you keep it running efficiently, and also constantly innovating with the latest technology, the Remy Halo system. Just great people over there and top-notch technology, and just fun too. Like we said, call Mrs. Brown when you get over there, and she's on location and she will help you through the whole process. You can call them directly at 901-362-1881 and go to their very easy to remember website, brownref.com, and also get over to their Facebook page. Now, what we need to do is start linking the video to their Facebook page too. You think? I don't know. Maybe they don't want to do that, but hey, folks, yeah, it's going to be an interesting show today, Alan. I really like these hacks that we discuss, and we hope people will chime in and send us their hacks.
We need some more hacks.
Okay, all right, Alan. Hey, we're going to take a quick break, and then I shudder to dive into this, but we're going to get into Alan's Week in Review.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
You're making a plan while I'm being a man, just winging it.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
I mean, that's how we get our show prep done around here, Alan. Just
I know. It's so sad.
and keep it in song, too, just to make things happy. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com. Our pal Max over there behind the glass.
It's just an Aquabat time of day.
Well, and of course the MC Bat Commander on in that latest rejoiner. So what a great show that is, folks. If you've got kids, or if you're just like wacky, zany comedy, the Aquabats. Jump on YouTube and watch the Aquabats. You'll thank me later.
It's the modern day equivalent of the Monkees because it's like a TV show about a fake band, but they're actually real.
It is the lead singer, the MC Bat Commander, one of the best. So don't roll your eyes at me, Alan.
I can't roll them hard enough.
If you want to call in and talk about the Aquabats, you can get in touch with us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And we invite you to go to two Facebook pages this morning. Go over to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page and check out the action over there, including our must-have item of the week and including the great moments in building history that we're going to be discussing later. Also, go over to the News Talk 98.9 The Roar Facebook page, and the cameras are on, so you can watch the show, watch and listen at the same time. So, Max, you said during the break we had a caller, but he had to clock in and get to work, so he...
That's dedication, though, man. They call us right before they have to clock in, but they also texted us, a man by the name of Larry, and they offered their own hack. They said, wet towel on microwave for 3 minutes, remove wrap with tongs, it's hot, wipes clean, it rehydrates everything in the microwave. And Alan, you said you actually knew about this hack.
I do. I have done that, probably 1,000 times over the years.
To clean a dirty... So there's spaghetti sauce and everything baked on the side.
Stuff happens in the microwave. It pops and spits. And you wind up with little dried bits here and there. Put a good wet towel in there. Fire that baby up for a couple of minutes. It will produce plenty of steam. And then you can take... This is where people forget. Don't reach in there and grab that towel. That thing is hot. It's like boiling hot.
Oh, that thing, yeah, it'll be
Reach
scalding.
in there with a pair of tongs, take it out, use a new towel, and wipe down the inside of your microwave, and it will be nice, fresh, clean, and ready to go.
Okay.
But be careful. Watch for heat. I know everybody goes, well, you turned it off so the microwaves are gone. That's true, but steam has still heated things up.
Yeah, I mean, I think we know that. So, hey, Larry, thanks for weighing in, and we wanted him to talk to him on the air, but I guess when you call in 30 seconds before, you got to clock in. So, all right, Allan, I really shudder to dive into this, but let's do it, sir. So,
the humanity.
yeah, Allan's Week in Review, where we review basically, you never know what Allan Gilbreth might do from week to week, and we mine that gold. I hope this is gold. Sometimes it's I don't know.
It depends on how you look at it, but you said mining. I'm kind of like how you put that.
Yeah.
This week, two of the biggest projects that actually have a common theme to them was one, I got to build a hummingbird garden.
All right, that sounds nice. What's involved with a hummingbird garden?
This was for a business that has a large tree kind of in a corner and a huge, ugly dead spot under it. Nothing's going to grow there. It's up again, it's trying to compete with the tree.
In the shade,
it's
roots,
in the shade.
everything.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So we went in and put in some really nice, really big potted ferns.
Right.
Put up a couple of hummingbird feeding stations. And put a nice little bird bath right there in the center, mulched everything in, got it all looking nice and swanky. And that's when we noticed there's a slight problem.
Of course.
And I'll come back to that in a moment.
Okay, put a pin in that one.
Because job number 2 of another facility had a lot of really big planters out in front of it. And again, in the shade, lots of tree coverage. But it should be a beautiful walkway. And it just, looked weedy.
Yeah.
So, again, with the ferns, because it's, kind of a shady area, we went in and cleaned up all the pots and remounted and replanted everything and put in some beautiful, for those who like Kimberly sword ferns, they're just absolutely beautiful. They grow nice and tall.
Who's Kimberly and why does she have such a cool sword?
Yeah, I mean, that's a cool name for us.
It's a Kimberly sword fern, and they're from Australia, New Zealand.
Leave it to Australia.
Yeah, they got the cool stuff.
They do have cool. I mean,
but everything can kill you.
Well, even the ferns are after you.
Kimberly sword fern. Pretty neat. Okay.
And they are quite lovely, and they do sell them at your local big box store. Except for one of them that I bought all of them at yesterday.
Oh. Yeah, don't go to the one Allan cleaned out. Okay.
So the guy kind of got cleaned out yesterday. But we got all of this done. And amazingly, at the second facility, I discovered the exact same issue.
Well,
and
it's seasonal, right, Allan? So, I mean.
Well, it's not so much seasonal as it is, I'm going to say, decorative.
Okay.
So at both facilities, they had little drains. And I've noticed this working on a house not too far from either one of these facilities. They also had a French drain system up around the house to help keep water off the house.
Yeah, I wondered when we were going to hear about French drains because so far I've heard about hummingbirds and Kimberly
sword ferns.
But,
but both of the big facilities have drainage systems. And the house I worked at this week had a full French drain system.
Okay.
And all three of them had made the same horrible mistake.
Yeah.
They got cutesy and decorated or hid their drains. So here's the cute little
I know where you're going with this.
lawn sculpture with the holes in the bottom of it that's supposed to keep the debris out of your drain. And all those really do is make the debris pile bigger.
That's where the dam is created.
My gosh, Hoover couldn't have done it better.
Right.
And I mean, one of them actually looked a lot like a small beaver dam.
Oh,
There was so much stuff down over the cute little decoration that was supposed to be hiding the big ugly drain. And it really looked like a small wood city. It looked like the Gnome City had been washed away and was now tragically over the drain.
Let me make sure I understand, Allan. You're saying the teaser here was French drains require maintenance.
They do.
Because, I mean, things, especially like with pine needles or something, they
Branches,
wash down.
leaves.
They collect on the French drain, which, folks, if you don't know what a French drain is, it's basically a underground pipe and with usually like a vent on the top, and
so the water
goes
escape.
under instead of over. But thing about it is, like I said, if it clogs up, it's suddenly useless. So, but you're saying people decorate these. I don't get what you're talking about with that. So,
Well,
or you're saying they just leave it alone.
Well, they kind of try to hide it or make it part of the yard decoration. So they got, in this case, it was a big frog.
Oh gosh. Okay. So nature was
No, it wasn't a real frog. It was a concrete frog, and they had kind of put little stones under him, so he sat just above the French drain. But it was a very small gap, so it filled up with all the branches and the leaves, and they had just basically narrowed the ability of the drain to get the water out of there.
So don't be ashamed of your French drains.
Exactly.
Let them breathe. Let them be seen.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
They need a lot of care, like actual French people.
Yeah.
All right. And all our French listeners can
Yes, and please send your complaints to care of Max.
So they're high maintenance, like the French. So
All right, there we go.
All right, no, but that's.
So-
I mean, it seems like a simple point, but suddenly, if you don't, I mean, you just made it useless. If it's blocked, it's doing
especially
nothing.
this time of year, because we
Right.
still have, because of last December, we're still getting an amazing amount of deadfall out of the trees.
Yeah.
So, and that was kind of what struck me, because, you think December was months and months and months ago. Winter's over. We're into May. It's going to be June soon. No, seriously, we still have a lot of small branches that were killed back when we got that big, heavy
Oh yeah.
winter blast last December. Well, a lot of that is still rotting off and breaking off and falling down, and a lot of it isn't big. A lot of it's
That's the stuff that makes it when it's small.
and that's the stuff that blocks up these drains. And as you and I have said about 1,000,000 times, water is your enemy.
With that situation, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
because it's looking at where the water line got the day before yesterday or yesterday, depending upon who got hit with what rain. One of them, the water actually got all the way up to the door.
You're making me think of something, Alan, because it seems to me when we get all different types of rain, but this time of year we seem to get those random torrential rains that and this it seems to me that if you've got issues with draining in your yard, now don't go out and get struck by lightning, but instead of just hunkering in, maybe get to the window, get lots of photo evidence, get some video, and really analyze where all this water's going, where it's pooling up, and then use that for your French drain design. Because I think sometimes these things are also placed in the wrong location, or they're you have to think strategically. Like, is it like I'm just thinking you were talking about clogging it up. Man, we've got all those little, I don't even know what they're called, but in our driveway we've got all those little thin polleny type stringy messy things that get all over your car and everything.
Yeah, that is your tree's pollination system.
Yeah, which that'll clog it up.
Those things will block you up for weeks.
Yeah. So use the next time we get one of these heavy rains, use it as a way to kind of gauge where everything should go, and make sure your French drains are properly placed. So.
Well, and it's not just the French drains. It's not a bad idea to go walk around and look at the bottom of your boxwood fence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that can create a barrier.
I run into where the subdivision developer had this cute idea to drain the houses down the side of the houses.
Right.
So the backyard is sloped in such a way that water should flow out from between the houses, right?
Sure.
Well, in come the people moving in, and they got a dog, and up goes the boxwood fence. And if whoever put the fence in installed it too close to the ground, now the water can't get under it, and you're going to pond your backyard.
And a lot of people would say, wait a minute now, there's spaces in between the fence boards. Yeah, when it rains.
One leaf is all that takes.
Well, it's not only that, Alan, you talk about a wood that expands and contracts, man, when that thing swells up, it
barrel tight.
It's almost watertight, yeah.
Yes.
And so, man, it will definitely, and then the grass and everything kind of creates like a little seal for it.
Yeah.
So.
And for one client, I mean, it was as simple as kind of just digging a little 6-inch hole in the corner and putting a little pea gravel in it so the water could, flow to the corner and escape and get to the other side.
Yeah. All right. Well, you got the problem. You got the problem solved, right? So,
We
I mean,
did. We did. So it was a happy ending, but it's a cautionary tale of cute doesn't always drain.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Very well put, sir. So, all right. Well, it wasn't one of your more horrifying stories. At least there was a solution.
Well, it could have been, because just that little bit more of rain and you could have had a flooded house.
Okay. All right. Sounds good, man. So, hey, Allan, I'd like to hear about our new sponsor, and we should remind people.
Yes, our
we're
lovely.
actually kind of running out of space. So, if you want to get involved with Tool Talk Radio, definitely get in touch with us.
We only have a couple of more of the coveted sponsorship spots still left available.
A few, but yeah. So,
and our lovely camera system that you can see us on Facebook right now is brought to you by the Royal Retreat. And the Royal Retreat is an assisted living facility over at 6551 9 Arnold Road. And, I haven't taken you over there yet. I've got to get you there. This is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Freshly painted, newly renovated, accepting new residents. And they made it they gave me the greatest line ever to talk about this. Why, when it's time to need assisted living, they said, you know what? You've worked really hard your whole life. You've done everything for everybody else.
Right.
Come and get pampered. And that's what,
So that's the tagline.
I'm kind of liking that. I'm
All
kind of
right.
liking that. So if you have this type of need in your family and in your life, you can get in touch with Lana Candela. And again, it's the Royal Retreat, and they are at 901-360-8785. And I'm going to pause for a few seconds and repeat that number so somebody can grab a pen.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're like me, you're looking for a pen, you're clicking it to see if it writes. So again, 901-360-8785.
Okay. Yeah, very cool. And I'm sorry, I failed to mention that it is the Royal Retreat Studio Cam that's being activated now. And if you want to see what it looks like in here. Although, Allan, I think in the background they can see the studio. We can't stand behind the beauty of the on-air personalities. However, the studio is beautiful. This place is state of the art.
We do have the faces for radio.
Yeah. So, all right, Allan, I've got a little bit of a beef. I don't know if this is a beef. We're going to turn the corner, and I want to discuss my reciprocating saw. And maybe I got carried away, but folks, if you followed, I was very late to the game in battery powered tools, which I don't, I'm not going to keep harping on it, but my original beef, and now this, Allan, when I say original, I'm talking, my 7 or 8 years ago. Is when I was really, against battery-powered tools.
You were resistant.
I was resistant only because I just found it whenever I would use them, they didn't have the torque that I wanted, and the battery petered out sooner than I wanted. And so I wanted, when I'm drilling, I want a real, something that's got some power to it. So I was resistant. However, they've come a long way. About a year or so ago, I finally succumbed, and I bought, I got a whole battery-powered tool system now. I've got drills, I've got, saws, and I bought one of the coolest tools ever, which is a battery-powered reciprocating saw.
Oh, yeah.
And, man, am I having fun with that thing. Folks, if you don't know what it is, some people refer to it as a Sawzall, although I think, isn't that the brand?
That's a brand.
It's it's kind of like Kleenex is a brand, but everybody calls it Kleenex or something.
It's like Xerox. Xerox me a copy or something.
Or Q-tips.
Yeah, exactly. So so folks, if you don't know what a reciprocating saw is, it's almost like it's a two-handed saw. Don't go using this with one hand.
Oh no, they now make a beautiful one-handed reciprocating saw.
Well, the one I have is two-handed. I don't want two-hander. I don't want anybody. I don't want us getting sued, Allan.
Right.
So hold on with two hands with this, and depending on which blade you use, you can cut through PVC, you can cut through wood, you can cut through metal. You can cut through a lot of stuff. It's the ultimate destructo. When you go in and somebody says, we need that wall and we need that, that whole side of the house ripped out, you whip out the reciprocating saw.
Well,
and
case in point, last night on a job site, they were putting a lot of sheetrock up, and all around all of the door facings was an inch or two of drywall hanging out all over the place.
Right.
And the poor gentleman working the drywall was bemoaning the fact that he was going to be hand cutting for hours trying to trim out all of these doors and windows and everything.
And you were chuckling to yourself like...
and somebody outed me and just went, Allan, go get your toy.
Right, yeah.
And so I walked back in with a nice little short multi-purpose blade, and 10 minutes later, now admittedly we were all covered in sheetrock dust.
Oh, it's messy.
It wasn't clean, but I tell you what, those door facings looked beautiful.
Okay.
Fast and easy.
What I like about the reciprocating saw, too, depending on which blade, you got to use the correct blade. And if you get a reciprocating saw, don't be a cheapskate. Keep some extra blades on hand.
And
they
buy the
wear
good
out.
ones. Don't buy the cheap ones.
Right. And really, the difference in price between a good one and a cheap one is
bucks.
negligible.
Yeah.
So keep that handy because you're going to want to use the right thing. Because if you're doing something like what you're saying, Allan, I could see how you're going to catch the odd nail. But these things will cut right through that.
Yep.
So... Well, Allan, I think I reached the limit with what I could do with a reciprocating saw, though, because
what did you do?
Well, so I was there was a tree stump. So this one I would say is about a foot in diameter or something, and it only had about it was like 4 inches left. And it was it was kind of old. It was more of a kind of decrepit, you could say. And my thought was, okay, I was sitting there, chopping at it. I didn't have an axe handy or anything. My thought was, okay, if you can imagine this reciprocating saw has an exposed blade. My thought was I would pull it towards me. I would drag it across the top of the stump, kind of crisscross style, like cut down 4 inches, and then once I've got it kind of scribed, you could say, then just get the sledgehammer and just whack it out of there and just bust out those.
I know exactly how you broke it now.
Yeah,
because you broke it.
Well, apparently there was more spunk in this tree stump than I thought. I think there was a lot of moisture down in there.
Yes,
and
yes,
it probably swelled and whatever. But anyway, I got about halfway through. I was really excited about how well it was working until it didn't. And Allan, the thing is, though, what broke was there. So, folks, you basically, if you can picture this, you put the blade in. There's a little release lever, and then you snap it in place. Well, there was this connection point, Allan, and I want to say. It was basically, I don't know, maybe a quarter of an inch or 3/8 of an inch wide, and that's it. Holding all of that stress, holding all of that. Well, that didn't seem like it was up for the job. So, is that a design flaw? At least maybe on my brand. But
they're not designed to be pulled the way you were pulling them. So,
well, I mean,
all right. And also, what blade did you have on it?
I had the Destructo wood blade. I had the big. Well, okay. I had the 12-inch.
Did you have the shrubbery blade?
Cut the tree, yeah.
All right, you had the shrubbery blade.
Right.
All right, you had the right blade. But what you should have done was just lay that baby over and just cross-cut straight across it. You don't put torque on the blade.
Well, then I had to get down at the ground. I tried that. I tried getting under it, and I think the big issue for me, though, what I was guilty of is it looked like just this dried up old tree stump. However, you probably get down a couple inches and it's soaked with water.
And what happened is because you were torquing it as you were trying to do that angle, when you hit from the dry wood into the green wood,
right, it
seized it, and when you pulled, you snapped that little connector.
Yeah, that's what I'm. So I'm gonna get another one because now I can't live without my battery powered reciprocating saw. I'm just still amazed how much power they have. And I will say this, because I bought extra batteries for the whole for my whole tool set, and man, those things really hold a charge much longer than they did.
The batteries are amazing.
I'm fully converted, and as long as we're doing confessions on the air, I told you before. That Old Blue I haven't used Old Blue in months. It's just retired. Old Blue, folks, is my corded drill that I used for 20 years that I swore I would never get rid of and everything. Right. I haven't gotten rid of it, but it's sitting on a shelf in the garage. So
that's all right. Hang on to it. It still has uses. But I got to tell you, with one of the houses we're working on, we've been replacing sheetrock. Yeah. And those they got the regular battery, then they got a 2x battery and a 4x battery.
Right.
And I got the excuse to go buy myself a brand new orbital sander. Okay. And I got news for you. A 4x battery and a brand new orbital sander, you can totally wreck some mud.
You know?
Oh my gosh, so fast, so easy.
It's funny you say that because I sort of had my eye on a cordless belt sander because one of the things with the belt sander, I mean, I do have a pretty good belt sander. However, that cord gets in the way.
It does.
I usually have to like drape it over my shoulder so that it doesn't accidentally get snagged in the wood or something. So I don't know. A cordless sander sounds.
I'll let you borrow my orbital. It'll convert you quick.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious if anybody else is out there. Any old timers are stubborn and set in their ways. But
give us a call. We want to talk about old tools.
Yeah,
absolutely.
If you're one of those people that you just trust me, I was as resistant to this as I could be, but
trust me. Joe and I are both curmudgeons. We can't wait.
Yeah, get in touch. Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline, 901-683-0989, and go to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page and check it out over there. Hey, Allan, real quick, can you give a shout-out? You said there's some listeners from new countries that are listening to us.
Well, hello, Italy.
Oh, okay. I don't know any Italian. Okay, what is it?
Yeah, don't even try it.
Okay.
Don't even try it.
I've been to Italy, though. Beautiful country. Fun people, too.
Let's just say popping over to tooltalkradio.com and going to visit us at either of Spotify or the lovely world of YouTube podcasting, and we are heard around the world.
All right. Welcome, Italy. Well, Allan, hour one of Tool Talk Radio is in the can, but hour two is coming up, and this is going to be very interesting. We're going to talk about the world's biggest mother statue.
Mm-hmm.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
And welcome to hour two of Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And as an added bonus, Allan, they can watch the show today on the Royal Retreat Studio Cam.
I don't know if they want to.
Well, it's pretty nifty technology. If you want to see what the show looks like as we're doing it,
especially on this World Migratory Bird Day.
Yeah, absolutely. We're celebrating World Migratory Bird Day, and boy, we're celebrating in style. Allan's going to be serving about 15 different kinds of birds at the barbecue later, right, man?
Just hope you don't get bird flu.
But check it out. Go to the News Talk 98.9 The Roar Facebook page, and that's where you will find the Royal Retreat Studio Cam in full force. And the studio does look great, Allan. I mean,
it does. Beautiful
the little bit they can see of it, trust us, folks, it is state-of-the-art and awesome. So check that out. And then, of course, get over to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page and give us a like and see the posts that we've made over there, including our must-have item of the week and our great moments in building history, which we'll be getting to momentarily. Earlier in the show, if you're just tuning in, we had a few really interesting hacks that we were sharing, and Larry, one of our listeners, weighed in with his hack. But these were along the lines of using, spackle or stain as an actual solvent, or your hack of using mayonnaise as a polyurethane, Allan. Larry had a great one about, an easy way to clean a microwave with a wet cloth. If you've still got any hacks, we definitely want to hear from you. So get in touch. You can text those in or call or whatever you want to do.
We'd love to hear from you.
Before we do, I'm really looking forward to our great moments in building history, Allan. We're going to get to that in a minute. Before we do that, though, I want to just remind people, if you've got any roofing needs, let's just talk about the exterior protection of your home from top to bottom.
Oh, yes.
Roofing, gutters, siding, windows. What did I miss, Allan? I mean, that's the armor plating of your home there. So, and you need a competent, especially with the roof, you need a competent contractor and somebody that's reliable, great business culture, and somebody that's going to be there to stand behind their work. And that, of course, is our good buddy Jay Hill with Big M Roofing and Remodeling. Man, what a cool guy. He's due for another visit here shortly.
Oh, yes.
So, but roofing is, I don't know if there's anything more important. If you without a roof, without a roofing system as well. I mean, you're.
Well, yesterday was a great example. Pouring down rain, and I sat there and smiled looking at my new roof and new gutters.
Allan and I both have roofs from Big M Roofing, and the great thing is Jay, in addition to being 5 stars with the Better Business Bureau, a GAF Master Elite Installer, 5 stars with Good Housekeeping, he's also a former insurance agent. So let's suppose you're out there and you've just had some damage from this storm, or you've got some issues that may be covered by your homeowner's insurance. Well, that's not just a simple process of picking up the phone and calling your homeowner's insurance and working the problem out. The first call you need to make is to Jay Hill, because he knows the protocols, he knows the process, and his consultation is free. So you get Jay over there, you look over the situation. He'll probably have one of his team there they get up. It's interesting, Alan. They get up on the roof with their chalk and they mark off the problematic areas, and they photograph it all. And at the end of the visit, you're going to know if you have a path forward or if you don't. But either way, you're going to have accurate information and you'll know how to proceed. So, and that works for the gutters as well as the siding and the windows as well. So from top to bottom, he takes care of the exterior protection of your home. And also, he has got a great financing system over there with 30 lenders. So if you decide you want to finance, that's not a problem. The application takes less than 2 minutes, which that's always hilarious to me. You pull it up, boom, 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 boom. You get all these lenders that want to give you their money, and you select the terms that work best for you. So Jay is just a very dynamic personality. This is what he lives for. This is what he does 24 hours a day. So he's all about it. So get in touch with Jay. You can call him anytime. I always recommend calling him about 3 a.m. just for kicks.
And talking about Star Wars.
And call him at 901-484-5645 or go to bigmroofingandremodeling.com. All right, Max, hit it, man.
And now, great moments in building history.
One other thing, you may want to, if anybody has any information about who that mysterious voice is, by all means call. All we know is one day we arrived at the studio and that MP3 file was in there. It sounded good. We decided to use it, but nobody took credit for it, Max.
He's probably buried inside the statue we're talking about today.
Probably. So,
He probably
Allan,
should be anyway.
I feel like I have to say this out front, just because, if let's just say this, Allan, I yield to no one in my love for America. Everybody knows how, patriotic I am. And so let's just get that out of the way right now. However, today we're going to talk about one of the coolest statues.
Building.
This is a structure, and this has actually got kind of a complicated history because this is a structure. It's the biggest. It's technically right now the biggest female statue, you could say. There's some other statues we might cover in the future that kind of dwarf this now. However, this is the biggest statue of a female character, you could say, and it's called Motherland Calls, and it's in Volga. How do you pronounce it? Volgograd, Russia.
Yes.
And it commemorates the Battle of Stalingrad, which at the moment, Russia was our allies back in the day. I know we've had our issues, and I know we still do, but we're talking about building here, folks. So let's just focus on that. But Allan, this has got to be one of the coolest statues. It would be impressive to see this in person, but we're talking 8,000 tons of it. This is a concrete statue, which basically means it is a metal frame-ish type thing, 8,000 tons, and this thing is 279 feet tall. What's most impressive, folks, though, is this. You really need to go to our Facebook page if you're not familiar with the statue. This is a woman with arms outstretched, and in her right hand, she is holding a sword that is over 100 feet tall.
Yes.
Good luck with that. Yeah, you're the architect. You've been given this task. Have fun. Go out and build this. So that's what we're going to talk about today, Allan. What an impressive structure.
And I'm immediately going to tie something crazy like this back to home improvement.
Okay.
Because if you're whining about getting 6 bags of mulch to the backyard,
in your wheelbarrow,
keep in mind the absolute devotion these type of things require.
I mean, Allan, it's a concrete.
Now, this one's fairly more modern. This is 1967.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff we end up talking about was turn of the century and that type of thing. So this one's at least got diesel power and trucks.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, so they could get it there. But what's interesting, it looks like they constructed this. What struck me immediately, Alan, is if you look at this looks like a big solid, block of whatever. Well, it's hollow and it's got chambers, and almost you could say it reminded me a lot of these structures we're seeing with 3D printers where they're using almost natural. They're using natural, like almost like okay, we talked about the honeycomb structure where it uses flexibility and all that. So these are chambers that are very similar to what you would find in nature to give it flexibility, because you have to have flexibility with something this big, and it's windy. It's up at the top of an elevation.
Yes,
it's fully exposed, so it's windy, it's cold. I mean, it's in Russia. It's getting extreme temperatures and everything.
It's getting pounded, and it's basically pre-stressed concrete.
Okay.
I mean, it is honestly, we keep talking about Legos. We admire the lovely Lego Corporation so much. Of basically, this statue is a mannequin form with concrete plates.
Right.
Held in place with wire ropes.
Okay, they said wire ropes in there, and I want to make sure I understand. I think of a wire rope as being very flexible. So
yes.
Well, I mean, also you need some flexibility, but not too much. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
This whole statue, again, we've talked about how your house doesn't look like it moves.
Oh, yeah.
But you and I both know the house moves a lot.
Right.
The Eiffel Tower can change in height in a day 6 inches.
Well, exactly.
So
they said the sword can sway 8 inches without batting an eye,
without any problem. So when you're building something like this and you're looking at this, you're having to overcome a lot of issues. And I would just have to say, in 1967, they didn't have a supercomputer sitting around crunching the numbers, trying to figure out the tensile strength of the wire ropes it was going to take to not break.
Well, here's the other thing, Alan. I'm glad you mentioned that, because today what you would have, I'm sure you would have some sort of 3D rendering that would tell you down to the millimeter exactly what size plate you need to put by. Because don't forget, it's not just that her arms are outstretched. She's got a flowing gown that's blowing in the wind and everything like that. And this is a piece of art. And if it doesn't look good, well, who cares how strong it is? It has to look, and it has to be scaled. The face has to be the correct size. Everything has to be scaled. And it's very impressive how well they did that with, I mean, you're saying it's still a modern structure, but I don't know. 1959 is still light years away from where we're at with technology
like I said,
today.
a supercomputer did not crunch these numbers.
Right.
Some poor architect had to sit down with his literally still slide rule pencil and paper and go, okay, this thing's going to be almost 300 feet tall.
Right.
It's going to have over 6,000 tons of concrete and over 2,600 tons of metal.
Yeah. And
the sword by itself, just that one long structure that is cantilevered off her arm. So it's no other support.
Right.
It's just out there. That by itself is 14 tons.
Well, I was thinking about that because I was thinking of, whatever they built her arm out of and her wrist right there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that you just said it. It's holding 14 tons in the wind.
Yes.
In extreme temperatures. On that alone, I don't even know what you would build that out of. That's it seems like even steel, anything could fail.
It is, and it is actually a steel wrist, and there is actually an analogy to a real wrist in the way that the cables are tensioned coming from the base of the sword, providing the cantilevering action going back into the arm.
Right.
So the angle the sword is being held at is kind of like finding the 0 point on a wheelbarrow.
Okay.
So have you ever picked up a wheelbarrow?
Right.
And it's really, really heavy, really, really heavy. And then you get what we like to call the 0 points.
You lift it up to the right level, and then it's
all
balanced.
The weight is down on the wheel and not on you.
Okay.
Right. So Can you imagine trying to figure out the 0 point between the arm and the sword with the wind?
And, we keep talking about this is a piece of art, and you can't just build this from the point of view of, well, structurally, this is the strongest way to do it. It has to be dramatic. The way this, I think why I'm so impressed is because this is a very dramatic piece of art, and it does, it's called the Motherland Calls, and it commemorates one of the bloodiest battles really in human history.
Right.
And it's basically trying to drive your people to continue fighting and everything, and it does convey that in the artistic portrayal. So.
Just for a more deep dive, it was commemoration for the Battle of Stalingrad, and there is over 1 million casualties.
I mean,
over the course of 200 days.
Yeah, and I mean it's sort of shocking thinking of that. So, but the other thing, Allan, this is built on an elevation which is basically they buried the soldiers underneath this elevation. So. It's basically a massive grave, but I'm talking structurally. That's creating some issues because now we're going to talk about some of the issues that have emerged out of this because it's not like they built it and left it alone and really within about 5 years or something issues started to come about based on
all right,
all
well
these
we're going to
problems.
start with the fact that we have a giant metal wind sail.
Yeah, that sword was an issue. So,
I remember, I'm old. I remember the BBC making fun of this thing back in like 1970 because it was loud. Nobody really expected the statue to be loud.
Well, let me. Okay, so folks, too. The other thing is, I strongly encourage you to at least Google this. This is a really cool looking thing, but it's out in the middle of this. It's really exposed. It is out there in the middle of this elevation. It's very dramatic. However, it's really exposed to wind. And what they said here, there was deformations in the design of the sword, which caused the sheets of titanium plating to when it got windy to give this thundering metal sound, like a ear-splitting sound. And I can imagine what that's like. You're there, and this thing's open at night too, so it's lit up with spotlights, and you hear that sound in the wind. That's got to be kind of off-putting. So yeah, it just almost like I'm thinking of Thor or something with the lightning, but they didn't like that. They wanted to
it was a
correct
little
that,
loud. So they have since.
That was only 5 years into this thing.
Yes.
So what did they do though? They did change it. They've updated that. So.
Well, they took the plating off because that was vibrating and creating a lot of it.
Right.
It's now just stainless steel, not stainless steel and titanium, and they also put in windage holes.
Right.
So that it could dissipate some of that energy.
Yeah, because when I saw it, they talked about how they've put some holes in there so that the wind can pass through. Wherever they put them, though, they're not real obvious. Like, I mean, from the ground, you can't even see them. I don't think.
Well, it's kind of like putting in a ridge vent on your home.
Yeah, you don't see it.
Right.
But
It's not all that noticeable. Now, here's another thing that ties this directly back to your house.
Okay.
And this is something people you're from Chicago. Let's pick on Chicago for a moment.
All right.
And Florida, because all three of them have a similar issue. Groundwater.
That's next to my notes here, Allan. I'm sitting there looking at.
As you begin building these things, and let's say you're building a house, your house weighs tons. And we build a foundation and we spread it out to spread the weight out, but you're still pushing down.
Right.
So as a subdivision is built, it presses down and has a tendency to change in minor ways how the groundwater moves.
Yeah, because, we don't talk about this often enough, Allan, but under our feet, which, are rivers of water. I mean, underground water. We don't know.
Of water.
And like you say, you get a whole neighborhood that wasn't there before pushing down. That could alter it. You have a 800-ton statue or an 8,000-ton statue weighing down on an area that you basically dug up, too.
Right.
That's going to change some underground water levels. It changes
how things move and flow. So, there are unintended consequences that can show up years after somebody did something.
Sure. Yep.
So in this one, of course, it has shifted the foundation a little bit. Or as we like to say, your house is settling.
Yeah.
Well, your giant statue settled a little bit. And now it's kind of settled into place. They're not worried about it falling over, but you still had to retension wire ropes. You still had to reallocate for these slight changes in the balance of the statue.
Okay, well, Alan, let's fast forward a little. Because, so 1972, 5 years after the construction, they had to fix the sword. Okay, now if you go to 2009, this is when they were noticing the issues with what you're talking about with apparently an unnamed source, which is everything in Russia is going to be unnamed because they don't want to, but basically they said the statue was listing by 8 inches.
Yes.
Well, that's nothing to sneeze at, because the other thing that was surprising to me is this thing is not anchored to the ground. It is sitting there,
Just sits there,
held up by its own weight.
Yes.
Okay, that seems a little risky to me. Wouldn't you think this thing would be anchored in? I mean,
Well,
at least put some beams, or I don't know.
Just saying.
But so basically they had to so that was one thing that they started to notice, and this official was pretty concerned. They said if it lists a little more, it could tip over.
Right,
You know?
but
So
I think it's pretty solid now.
it's solid. And then in 2017, so they addressed that in 2009, and then in 2017 they did a full restoration. And Alan, I remember as a kid that when they restored when they were doing a restoration to the Statue of Liberty, the scaffolding surrounding it, and they were kind of tuning it up, you could almost say.
Yes.
And they did the exact same kind of thing here, because there was a lot of cracks, there was a lot of concrete that needed repair, and so it's pretty solid now. It seems like it's not going anywhere. They finished, so it took about 3 years. They started, and they finished in 2020. 2020. So, but I don't know, man. It's still just one of the coolest structures. Like I said, I still think it's a pretty massive achievement in terms of what it's conveying too. I mean,
it's striking. As we've already talked about another statue. We talked about poor old Lucifer out there in Denver.
Oh yeah,
and that is a
that weird,
very striking sculpture. I mean, if you drive by it, you're going to remember it.
Yeah, well, just like you remember Freddy Krueger or something like that.
You're going to remember it. So.
But something about this one really spoke to me, because when I've seen pictures, and I don't know, it's just a very amazing structure. So,
and I learned something kind of interesting about the sculptors themselves. They said the Motherland Calls monument in Volgograd was modeled on a local Soviet woman named Valentina Izotova, and Valentina was working as a waitress at a Volgograd restaurant when the local sculptor and 2 of his colleagues came in to dine at the restaurant. And I just think it's kind of interesting that they chose someone that was just sort of an ordinary person to be modeled for it.
That is interesting. I wonder if she was involved in the whole, she was at ground zero of where this battle took place. So it is neat when you learn the history. I mean, we didn't really even dive deep into the symbolism and to all the other.
Like there were 200 steps that commemorate the 200 days of the battle leading up to the statue.
Very interesting. Go on YouTube and check it out. The Motherland Calls statue. Definitely a great moment in building history. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. Alan, we got some good stuff to get to, and we're going to get to it when we come back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
This is what the holidays are all about. 3 buddies sitting around chewing gum, huh?
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
How else do you celebrate World Migratory Bird Day?
Yeah.
There you go.
That's what we're doing for Mother's Day tomorrow. Just, why not? You can't beat it. Sitting around, chew some gum. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio.
We'll talk about those wings I cooked last night.
Yeah. Coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios, I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And today we invite you to go over to Facebook, to 2 different pages. Visit the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page, naturally, and also scoot on over to the News Talk 98.9 The Roar Facebook page, where the Royal Retreat Studio Cam is in operation, Alan. And so far, Max has kept it on the whole time. He didn't turn his camera on, I've noticed. So One day people are going to want to see that, see what you look like, Max. I don't know.
I don't think people want to see how the sausage is made.
Well, they're already, you're going to get a glimpse of it if you head over there. And of course, you can go there any day, any time of the day. Like, suppose you're driving and you can't really be watching video. Well, just scoot over there tonight and watch the show in all its glory, Allan. So if you want to call it that. Hey, earlier in the show, we were talking about in great moments in building history, really one of the most interesting statues I've ever seen. And
Right.
Definitely a structural marvel, the Motherland Calls statue over in Volgograd. But, Allan, we failed to give credit where credit's due to the artist and to the engineer, and you're better at pronouncing these names than I am.
And I'm going to butcher them, so I apologize in advance. But Yevgeny Vutatek and engineer Nikolai Nikotin were the guys really in charge of all of this. And Mr. Vutatek is rumored to have used his wife's face, Vera, for the statue. They also used a local waitress, and they also used a lot of essences from the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, the Marseillais, and probably even a little bit from the Statue of Liberty, because a lot of these techniques for sculpting are pretty much immortal. They've been around since, honestly, the Greek sculptures.
Well, we should say, because, we covered the Statue of Liberty quite a while back. And, of course, the Statue of Liberty is hollow. It's really, when I learned how thin that layer of copper plating, it's the thickness of about 3 pennies, which it just seems like nothing. But it's flexible and all that. Well, the concrete in the Motherland Call statue is 12 inches, which that doesn't seem all that thick to me.
That's a lot of weight.
Yeah. Well, it is, but it still seems,
awfully thin,
and it's still standing. So
yes.
Pretty interesting stuff. Like I said, it's good for a deep dive. Go on YouTube and watch some pretty interesting videos about it. So, all right, Allan, it's time to shift gears, my friend. So it is time for our must-have item of the week, and actually, this is going to expand into a bigger discussion because once again, when you and I were on the phone doing our show prep last night, we said, wait a minute, this is actually a bigger topic than we originally thought. So tell people what I'm holding up, sir. Actually, I'm going to hold it up in front of the camera.
Look at that.
So we've got it
you
on.
have got expanding foam in a can.
Oh, yeah.
There's a variety of brands, but, expanding foam in a can.
I like the U, how it's like the expanding foam. It's the little details.
Yeah, so, whatever. I guess I just gave the name out. But I feel like everybody knows what expanding foam is. I feel like if I would have brought this in 10 years ago, we would have had to explain what expanding foam is. But, man, I think most homeowners have used this, but,
have used it, I'm going to say, and have used it wrong.
I've used it very wrong. I remember when I was a kid and there was a patch in our backyard where we needed to use expanding foam. I would use my BB gun and try to shoot into it.
Wait, what? I think we're talking about different
It's a good target when you have expanding foam in a large area.
Oh, so you made a big blob of expanding foam.
No, I took advantage of the blob of expanding foam and shot into it with a BB gun.
His father tried to repair something, and he went out there and went plinking.
I think that's what I just said, Max. So, okay. Max has this tendency to debate me on every little thing. Okay, so you took a big blob of expanding foam and shot it with a BB gun.
Yep, there you go.
Okay, good for you. So, all right, well, we were talking about the correct usage of how to use this to make your life better. And
all right, well,
the stuff's messy and sticky.
It's sticky,
Be careful.
it's wet, it expands, it does what it's supposed to do. It gets into everything.
Right.
And that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to fill a void.
When did expanding foam come into our life? I know it's been around probably longer than we might think, but I feel like I never really got involved with expanding foam until about the 90s. So.
Yeah, my first exposure to expanding foam was around 82.
Okay. Yeah. 82, that's before.
Yeah.
Before it was mainstream probably, so.
Well, and the poor gentleman that was trying to use it used it highly wrong.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was the first time I had realized how much of an amazing mess you could actually make.
Yeah, if you
with spray foam.
well, it's got its uses, and it's funny because we were going to talk about the second part of our discussion, Alan, is going to be what did we do before expanding foam? How did we get by? But folks, if you're not somebody that uses expanding foam much, basically it comes in a can and it's got this nozzle that you screw onto the top. It's about 7 or 8 inches long, and it basically this is the kind of thing though, Alan. You don't use it and then walk away and come back and an hour later and think you're going to use that can. This little nozzle will clog up within minutes. So basically, you better decide what you're going to use. And I know they say it's reusable, but I've never had any luck reusing these tips. Like they fill up, they get clogged. And
I've invented a few wire cleaners for them. Just run it down, get all the junk out of it, and you can go again. But
let's say conveniently. You can use it, but you can reuse it. But Alan,
I find use the can. If you're going to do the can, use the can. Yeah,
it's very handy. But there's some misuses you can do for this. I learned early on. In fact, it was my first home improvement project, and I made a mistake, Alan. I put this. When you install windows, this was a room addition at our first house. We converted basically a carport into living space, so we fully enclosed it. And one window, not one. I installed 4 windows, and along. You know how there's gaps when you have a window; it's shimmed into place, and you need to fill it with something. Well, I put expanding foam, but I made the mistake of putting the trim over it before I let the expanding foam dry.
No.
And what happened was I didn't allow any space for the expanding foam to come out. To expand out where I could just cut away the excess, and it squeezed the window so tight that I couldn't open it. So that was fun.
Yeah,
I had to cut that out
and
remove the trim. That was a pain. So this stuff, you put it on and it looks, it looks like, oh no, I need to add more. Well, no. How much does this expand at? It expands like 5 or 10 times its size, right?
A lot depends on the size of the void, the dryness of the void, and the presence of humidity.
Good point. Yeah.
If it is a nice standard temperature but slightly humid day, you are going to get the best possible performance out of your spray foam.
Oh,
that's the conditions.
Humidity is your friend.
Humidity actually is part of the chemical process taking place.
See, I would have thought it was just the opposite.
No. Well, you don't want to get it wet, but humidity helps set it up.
This is kind of a science question, but does expanding foam operate with a similar chemical or a similar principle to shaving cream? Because shaving cream seems to have that sort of expanding foam property to it too.
That's an
you're
interesting
not
question.
horribly wrong, because we're going to go back to Otto Baer. Otto Baer is generally the guy credited with inventing polyurethane.
Otto's just a cool name anyway.
The guy's named Otto Baer. Okay. He's got a great name but the thing was, it was kind of one of those science show experiments where you had innocuous looking liquid number 1 and innocuous looking liquid number 2, and they'd pour them together and they'd kind of shake them for a minute, and then it would go we have foamy stuff everywhere.
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of Otto Bayer, and he's literally standing in front of one of those demonstrations.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
I mean, we have whole YouTube channels where they dump a bunch of Mentos into like a kid's swimming pool.
Right.
And
Well, the idea was this chemical reaction would be actually a domino of chemical reactions, because the first reaction would be we bubbled up, like throwing an Alka-Seltzer into the glass of water. But now we're bubbling up into something like a shaving cream or a viscous liquid that would trap the air.
Right.
And then we have a chemical reaction that solidifies the viscous part of this.
Yeah.
So kind of welcome to the domino effects of foam spray. And this is why we weren't using foam spray in 1860. This was very chemically complex.
Yeah,
and
sure
now
is.
Today, we can get it in a can. So, when you press that down, you actually expose the two main sets of chemicals inside of it to each other, which then comes blowing out the end of it because it's got no place else to go.
Right.
So basically, it's a tiny little bomb in a can waiting to be mixed. And once it's mixed, the complex series of reactions begin. And as they begin, they're expanding, they're moving. But also just a little bit of humidity helps keep the reactions going and lets them reach their full potential.
Yeah, I want to say one thing about the misuse of this stuff because it does seem, it just seems like it's invincible. Like you spray it, it expands, it hardens, and you're in business. Well, I mean, it really hardens to more or less the consistency of like styrofoam or something. It firms up, you could say. This is not, I know they make different types, but
it's not concrete. No.
Yeah, but what I want to say though is one thing that I do notice is, okay, this is something to keep in mind because you spray it and the outer layer gets very dry and it gets, it even has like a smooth finish. However, if you put too much on, the inside never really dries right. It's gummy. You've seen this out. Like maybe you're spraying a big void in a soffit or a ceiling or something, and you just go to town and you spray that whole thing.
It collapses.
Actually, it's going to collapse like a souffle or something.
That's
like
what
that.
I was thinking. My mind was going to cooking and bread like a soggy bottom.
Right. So, yeah, exactly. So if you're going to spray it, you have to do it. If you want to fill a big void, what you really have to do, spray in a reasonable amount, let it dry, spray in another layer, almost like layers, but it's not a completely magic solution.
Well, horribly what you can do is you can kind of cheat like we do with drywall mud, and you can put a soft substance behind it.
Yeah.
Like if you've got a little bit of fiberglass insulation that you can kind of act as a back wall, then it gives it something to build up on.
Right.
So
one thing I wanted to say too, Alan, because I love this stuff, and a lot of times I see this a lot in sheetrock work. Okay, let's suppose you've got a corner where there's how do I describe it? Basically, you've got two 2x4s, and then for whatever reason, there's this void back there.
Yes.
And you try to fill it with something, or, maybe you're patching a hole. Well, you need something behind it to grab. Sometimes this expanding foam is great. You fill it in, it expands, and then now you have something to put your joint compound up against or something like that. But like we said, it has to be used judiciously, and it's messier than you think, too. Don't get it on your hands, or it's never coming off your clothes either.
Sticky. Now, I'm going to totally blow your mind.
Okay.
And when you're in a building or repair project, especially if you're working around, squirrels.
Right.
Squirrel damage. If you have got soffit voids that are in vulnerable areas.
Right.
You can always put a little steel wool down and then put a little spray foam insulation over the top of it. And that way, when the lovely little darling comes along to chew that end of the building off again, this time you have something waiting for it.
Well, the thing is, Alan, okay, we've talked about that. I don't want to get, I'm trying to think of what to say here without getting sued, but you could mix it in with a lot of surprises for those squirrels, I suppose.
Yes,
I mean, I always wondered, though, I thought they can chew through steel wool.
Well, they can. It's just not pleasant.
They don't want to.
Why would you want to? And then you're eating this crunchy, horrible stuff. They can chew through this. It's just very unpleasant.
Okay.
Chewing through your half-inch piece of lovely grade C or D pine is easy. They can chew through that in a heartbeat because that's tree and tree chips, and they're used to chewing through that stuff.
Yeah.
But when you get to steel wool and spray foam insulation and that kind of stuff, it's very unpleasant for them to try to get through.
Okay. Now you and I have butted heads over one of the applications. You there's an outside application you use this for where I've mocked you, I've ridiculed. Although if I'm honest, I've done this myself a couple times.
Yeah, I know.
In a pinch. But tell us what this one hack that you have with spray foam.
I will definitely straighten up a post with spray foam. Well,
you're talking a fence post or a heavy mailbox or something?
Well, all right. This particular spring, I have actually done this hack about 6 times already this year. We've had a lot of wind and we've had a lot of rain.
Okay.
That means boxwood fences not necessarily fall over, but they'll start to lean, especially if they weren't installed really well. There wasn't enough concrete around the post.
That's usually where they fail. So,
right. It's usually at the post in the ground. So, you go on the inside, you put in a retaining post, you put a string on it, you tighten it up, and pull the post back into place. Well, it's not going to stay. Yeah, because you're going to have to either dig it out and reconcrete it, or I will take a can of Great Stuff or other foam sealants and get down in there and fill that baby up. And of course, the moisture from the soil and everything, it'll really expand up, and it makes a big mess.
Yeah.
And you go back after it's dry with a hacksaw blade and just trim it up and make it look nice. But it will fill all of those little air spaces down there and give you a tighter, better seating for the bottom of that post.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
It'll work.
You know what you remind me of, Allan? If anybody out there is somebody that deals with foundations or concrete, I know there's concrete people out there. I saw a video pop up on YouTube that was very interesting. They had they were showing driveways or sidewalks that had sank maybe 4 inches or something, and these guys came along and they drilled holes in the sidewalk or the driveway, and they more or less sprayed it with what to me looked like a heavy duty type of expanding foam, and you could just watch it lifted lifted it into place, and when it got to where it was, they stopped, they capped off the holes or whatever. So I mean, yeah, it's a concrete slurry. Yeah, it's the same idea. They're just pressure lifting and filling that void underneath there. It's the same basic idea. That must be what they do when your foundation's sinking or something, right? I mean,
well, you get it. Well, it depends on why your foundation is sinking. I've even been involved in a job on that where we had to dig out an entire corner of a building, go in and build a concrete footer, and then add a building jack.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Put the jack, put the building back up into place, and then they had the spray coatings and stuff to make it permanent, fill it back in, and, the footing is there, the jack is there, the foundation doesn't crack halfway through the building later. So, there's a lot to that type of job. That is not a job I would say is a DIY.
No, we need to
that
talk
is
more
a professional that you need somebody that understands the stresses that are on your foundation.
We need to talk more about foundations, and I'd love to hear from professionals in this, because the thing is, we've talked to different people dealing with your foundation. It's a very scary problem because you're like, oh my gosh, but sometimes it's not as scary to fix it as people might. It might even be a simpler fix than people think. So it's like,
it's better.
Don't ignore it.
Yeah, it's better than the old days when, if you had a void someplace, you were using plaster-soaked rags and shoving them into place, and in the past we used a lot of basically natural-based caulking dirt, more or less dirt.
Yeah.
With some kind of adhesive in it to fill voids.
It's almost like paper mache. So
you'll still run into that since we're here in Memphis, we do run into that periodically in the Midtown area of town where you've got homes that have been there since Victorian times.
And you tear open the corner and suddenly you find I used to do that.
A big wad of plaster of Paris soaked rags where they shoved them up in there and sealed the corner up. I mean,
it worked.
100 years later, it's still there and it worked beautifully.
Yeah.
My question is just like if with stuff like that or with expanding foam, could mold get inside there? Because I just think with anything, the idea of it accumulating moisture and mold, like what sort of problems are presented with that?
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, I think the rags would definitely be more prone to it. Yeah. I mean, anytime there's a void and water gets in and it has trouble getting out, I could see. I don't know. Expanding foam, Max, I feel like is a safer. I feel like it's going to create more of a seal, don't you think, Allan? Although it can dry out over time, too.
It's not the foam I'm worried about. It's the wood around it. Because the wood is
the surface that it's trapping.
Yeah, the wood around it is what's going to absorb the water and grow slime molds or black mold or other things. I've even been in an attic that had a pinhole leak somewhere in the roof, and there were mushrooms growing off the rafters.
It's a good point. It's not the thing you put on it. It's the surface that, like, the wood was breathing and it was ventilating until you put this thing on there, and now it's not breathing, and that's the part that's going to rot.
That's where it's going to trap it. So Of the other thing that I get into with a lot with spray foam insulation is there is now a new version of it. Of a couple of companies are making it that is actually a fire caulk type of insulation, and that means it has basically little silica and other particulates in it that, if hit with heat, doesn't burn and expands.
Right.
So it would block flame from going through a void.
Well, they got, I mean, there's so many varieties of expanding foam. I didn't know we'd get this much mileage out of the discussion, Alan, but it's not just the foam itself. It's the same technology, kind of like Max said, shaving cream, concrete repair. It's wide ranging.
A lot. Well,
even Gorilla Glue has a form of that. I mean, they have the same type of thing. It expands. So,
well, we go back to a lot of research by the DuPont Corporation back at the turn of the century, which really began almost the chemical revolution that we have in home repair these days.
Right.
Paint has changed dramatically over the last 100 years.
Sure.
Oil-based paint has almost faded away completely.
They always say that.
Almost.
But it's
I said
still
almost.
There,
There will always be a niche market for it. But we've changed the formulations of so many things, and now we're into chemical gas control and things that were once, in 1950 when they were coming up with these ideas of mixing these chemicals, the big problem was, how do you control it and what do you do with it? Once one company or one guy figures it out,
right?
One researcher figures it out,
and it's open season.
Then it's kind of like you go from 0 to 60 in almost no time at all.
Then you got 30 companies competing to do the next. But it is good stuff. I mean, it does
what it's supposed to do.
Hey, Alan, we don't want to get out of here before we find out what's going on with Dark Oak Media this week. I'm sure there's
Dark Oak
activity
Media's
over there.
massive big hit is People You've Seen At.
Okay.
We've got little comedy shorts of just us talking about, people you might have seen at the movies.
Okay.
People you might have seen at a garage sale, that kind of thing. And, of course, the big, long-standing hit is it came from the international market, where you get to watch us eat, weird snack foods from around the world.
Okay, darkoakmedia.com. Check that out. So, and just a quick reminder, if you need a deck, a patio cover, pergola, exterior project for your home, if you like anything made out of wood for the outside of your home, give me a call at 901-921-7105 or go to my website, thorshomes.com. Boy, we really shoehorn those. That's what happens when you're not watching the clock, Alan. But
we got all excited
hey,
about spray
guys,
foam.
Speaking of excited, I wanted to give a shout out to one of our texters named Danny. He's listening to us while he's working on his gutter. So thank you, Danny, for listening to us.
All right, Danny, get in touch with us next week, too.
Give us a call,
30
man.
seconds before we go off the air. So, all right. Hey, Alan, what a show. So, but we're out of time. It's time to leave. So, you've been listening to another action-packed episode of Tool Talk Radio. On behalf of my buddy Alan Gilbreth and our pal Max over there behind the glass, I'm Joe Thorderson. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.